Ah, it kills me, man.
Oh, good. It should.
And we're live, everybody. Yes, I think so. Yeah, all seems to be working. Evening, Richard. Welcome, everybody, when you eventually get here. Thank you all for joining, and welcome to episode 1.35 of A History of the Interstellar Objects. Because we didn't quite get past where we were aiming for last week, so we'll keep it going. Richard,
it's okay, we can pick it back up.
do your wee shill for your channel at the start there. I'll share this out, and yeah, give me 2 minutes and you do your thing.
Peace and respect to you all. Well, welcome to episode 1.35, because that's about how far we've gotten so far. Today we'll be doing a little bit of finishing up David, and then we'll be moving on to Goliath. Maybe today we'll get to Goliath. We'll have to see. Shill my channel. Let's see, how does that go? Demolished doctrine, where a view is being presented that encourages the end of religiosity. Now, that's not the end of religion, but the end of religiosity itself, the practice of superstition, to be replaced with truthful things that comport to reality, things that make sense. And I would encourage that. I think that religiosity is temporary and fleeting, and I think it's time for it to go.
Yeah, as my mother always says, God is everywhere. Why do you need a church?
That's beautiful in its own way. Yes.
Well, maybe not along with your lines, but something similar. So yes.
Well, actually, what she said there is very biblical.
Oh yeah, well, my mother would be, she would consider herself a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's turned up yet. Can't even tell if the audio is working. I'm hoping the audio is working. I always worry at the audio about the start.
Okay, well, I'll unmute my monitor.
It should work. No, we'll be grand. We'll just wing it. We'll go with it, man. Where did we get to last week with David? They'll eventually turn up. If you make the video, they will come. What was that movie? Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams. That's right. Make the video, they will come. So yes. So last week we were talking about David, the aspects of David within the story, and how they apply to the planet Mercury. I had gotten to that David's travel as proof to Saul that he is a soldier is in the correct order in a counterclockwise direction, 4 positions on the zodiac, and the order of those would be Virgo, then Aries, and then Leo, with Ursa Major in Leo, and then a return to Virgo, 1 complete circle. So from astronomical north, that would be a counterclockwise direction, and some people may not be informed of this, but from astronomical north, all of our planets turn in a counterclockwise direction in our solar system.
As a side note, my auntie actually said that to me tonight. My auntie, when I was at my mother's house and we were talking about planets and stuff like that there, and she was like, well, did you know that the Earth spins counterclockwise? And I was like, yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
But that's down to you. Thank you.
Auntie, you're correct. That's what I found out the same thing. So David carrying his pieces, which are not armor, but just things that he has with him, because he's a shepherd boy, so to speak. So the shepherd boy carries a scrip, and that scrip is inside of a sling, and that scrip is inside a shepherd's bag. He also carries a sling and a staff, and I just did it in reverse order, so that as the planet turns, as the planet Mercury turns, if you were looking at the South Pole and you picked a spot, the blank spot that didn't have any mountain ranges in it, and you were just looking at a slice of it, as it rotated, which takes more than a year, one of its years.
Yes.
You would see the long straight one like a staff come into view, and then you would see the closed mouth U, like a leather strap, like a sling, and it has an impact crater in it, and the name of that impact crater is Fram Rupes. That's Framrupes.
Yes, I remember you giving me a wee synopsis of that back in another chat. Yes.
Right. And then beyond that, a big lazy J, and in the lazy J, 2 parallel lines the same length. And yes, they're very parallel. To me, they look like they were done on purpose. They don't look natural to me at all, actually. But that's another topic.
Yeah.
Maybe they were put there. I don't know. So then David, continuing on with David's story, and then we'll get to Goliath when David gets to Goliath.
Yeah.
So continuing on with David's story, King Saul says, "Hey, you better take this stuff from me because you're basically just wearing sheep herder's clothes." And David puts on the armor, but he immediately puts it back off. He says, "Look, this isn't my bag, baby." So he doesn't feel comfortable in armor. That is, he rejects something that comes from Saul. Well, from what I understand the story to be describing, when David picks up 5 smooth stones from the brook, he has rejected something that come from Saul. Okay, so I believe what that is going to be is a 6-part comet, and one part of it will pass Mercury by, but he'll pick up 5 parts. That is, 5 smooth stones from the brook would mean a 5-part comet impacting Mercury. This explains why as soon as he picks up the 5 stones, he immediately runs out to the giant. That would be because Mercury got knocked off course.
So all 5 do impact, or the big one doesn't, and the other 5 do.
It doesn't mention the comparative sizes of the 6 parts. It does. Right. That's not part of the story. I would be speculating.
Oh yeah, just adding a wee bit there to.
I would think, well, and I'm jumping way ahead into what this is explaining instead of just giving the story. But in the book of Revelation, this is one of the mountains of fire that fall from the sky, that the part that misses Mercury actually ends up crashing into the earth. And this would make what is called the Blood Sea Miracle, where it poisons a portion of the ocean. You remember that one,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a mountain falling from the sky, burning with flame, falling into an ocean, poisons a part of the ocean. And that would be one part of that 6-part comet that knocks the other 5 parts would hit Mercury. I think that it's reasonable to say that Mercury is in an orbit and it's relatively hard and it's relatively fragile, because of hardness. Like shooting, a pool ball is hard, but if you shoot a pool ball with a singular bullet, it's going to shatter it. So if you were going to push a planet out of it, even a very small planet like Mercury out of its orbit, you'd have to hit it with a shotgun. You couldn't do it with a singular bullet. So it makes sense to me that there would be a 5-part impact to help get it out of its orbit. I think that makes sense to me. I think that's plausible.
No,
I don't think it's very likely.
Something similar and along the same sort of lines of that, I would have, being a sci-fi fan and things like that, always expect a meteor to wipe us out. So I've watched and seen documentaries and things like that. And again, I've no citations right at hand, and this isn't what we do in this channel. We just talk and let people check our facts later. But I have seen and read that it is very difficult to knock a meteorite off course by hitting it with something. It is easier to, attract sales and things like that and all that there. When you actually hit something off another thing, you lose an awful lot of your energy in heat and, in other forms of energy rather than like a pool ball. Pool balls are designed specifically to pass. That's why they're kept perfectly smooth, so that it's one point of contact exactly with another point of contact. They're both the exact same size, so you get the exact same transfer of energy. Where if you'd 5 small meteorites, obviously they have to be smaller than the planet. It would take an awful lot of a whack. They'd have to be traveling at. It's a special type of whenever something's a ballistic, they would have to be traveling at a ballistic speed.
Well, you understand that, or you probably already know that. Maybe the audience doesn't know this, but it's not abnormal for a comet or meteor to be traveling literally at hundreds of thousands of kilometers per hour.
Oh, I get that, man. But relative to the fact that it's a planet, I'm talking about, that's why I said ballistic speed rather than actually putting a number on it. Ballistic, by that, it means that when it hits it, it's going to fuck it up. So relative to size and shit like that, that's what you're going for. You're going for a ballistic speed because it would have to be speed-wise or size-wise, I don't think even with 5 it would knock it off its course. But these things can happen. So continue on. Hi, One Way and Spooky. Thanks for turning up.
Peace and welcome. Yeah, I think any part of this is exceedingly unlikely. And I mean exceeding, like astronomically high numbers of unlikelihood. I really do believe that, and that's absolutely fine with me. I think they would need to be, or else if they were extremely common and likely, we would just go, oh, well, that was going to happen sometime.
Strange and very improbable things happen all the time. I was in the Chinese last week and reading the paper while I was waiting, and a woman got a dozen eggs, and every one of them was a double yolker. And it wasn't one of them double yolker boxes that they tried to. It was just pure random chance. And they worked it out at 1 with 32 zeros after it. Mm-hmm. You know, impossible.
Extremely unlikely.
Impossible thing. Yeah, well, extremely unlikely things happen all the time.
Yeah, but you have to consider how many people have bought a dozen eggs.
That's exactly it, man. It's about the amount of times that it happens. If given long enough, you know, it's the same with solar supernova. Supernovas is a very rare thing, but we catch at least, 5 a year, 6 a year?
I thought it was 30, but
I could be wrong, man. You know, again, I'm aiming low to be right. I'd rather say a lower number, you know. But yeah, we catch them all the time. We do catch them all the time. Right, so, sorry, yes, the meteorites have connected with...
Well, it helps that there's some 77 trillion stars in the sky to stare at, to watch for one to blow up. So that helps.
Yeah, I still haven't sent you that video, man, and it's like, or that actual picture, and the picture itself's 1.2 gig. I'll send you the link and you can download it yourself, but you can zoom in and zoom in and zoom in and zoom in and keep looking at galaxy.
I can't open something like that with the computer I have. No, definitely not. I can't open that.
It's class. It is very good. You can go on forever. But okay, I'll not go on forever. I'll let you continue on.
I don't know how you had room for that. You must have some pretty decent memory and well, I don't know much about computers. A lot of working drive, I guess.
Well,
yeah,
I bought a computer specifically for doing the channel. It has to be done, man. Sometimes it just has to be done.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry. Continue.
Okay. So although extremely unlikely, if David puts 5 smooth stones in the script, that means that the impact would happen on near the south pole of the planet Mercury, knocking it up and out away from the sun. So if that happens, I could easily see that if it got in the right neighborhood of Jupiter, that Jupiter would begin to pull it in, because it's basically the same size as one of Jupiter's moons. It's really close to the size of either Callisto or Europa.
Right. So just to get this right, so the meteorite's going to have to come in opposite side to where Jupiter and Mercury and all is. It's going to have to come in the opposite side. It's going to have to come from a high tangent orbit, which doesn't really happen that often. Or or whatever that new one was. We only caught it on the way out. It did something similar, flew in, went under the sun, and went back up again. Now, if it came at a high tangent, went down and underneath, and back up again, I can see it hitting Mercury. I can understand that, and I can see, as we were talking about with pool and stuff, the angle of that would send it in an upwards direction. It would then have to make its way past Venus, Earth, and Mars before it gets to Jupiter. And if at a long range distance, like for you're saying that it get hit with such a force that it's been knocked out of its orbit. It's now traveling at a certain speed. For gravity at that distance, even though Jupiter's massive, it takes a wee while. You know, it might get pulled in by Earth, leveled out by Mars, then it's going to have to get past there's an awful lot that has to happen for this to happen. You know,
and like I said last week to Jim, to hit Io and Europa with Mercury is like, it's like pitching a BB 50 miles and hitting another BB with it.
Yeah, if anyone's ever looked into
that's about the right scale.
Yeah, if anyone's ever looked into the mathematics and the timing that has to go into like Voyager and things like that to get it to gravity bounce off one planet, to gravity bounce off a gravity sling, off another planet, to get the timing right so they all match up. you know, there was a lot of work put into that. It's very little chance that it would be random.
Right. And since we're talking like a space probe or something that we would do, we're talking about a singular identified object making certain behaviors in a certain order. So in that way, it's not random at all, and in that way, there's nothing to compare it to. So this is actually a 1 out of 1. By the time
no. What I'm trying to say is, if I was sending a satellite out, I can control it. For me to do the mathematics and the timing of a planet, that could probably be done if we could control where the planets actually started. But we can't, because the system has been going for quite a wee while. You know, few billion years, like, you know, we don't get to set the starting point.
Really long time.
Yeah, a really long time. When I'm sending a satellite out, I've got its starting point, and I know where this is coming from and going, and this and that. And even though I can't control the planets, I can control the satellite that moves around it. You're actually taking it to a different stage and saying to move the planets. So to have them all, booster. Like when you move one planet, when you take Mercury out of the system, Venus and Earth are going to freak out too. And
you got to recalculate everything.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. You know, when you're doing it with a satellite, everything stays the same, and you can fly up. And well, it's not easy, but okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not easy.
I'm just throwing ideas out for the audience, people to get to listen to and things like that. And I want to hear the story, and we want to go through it. And
I actually appreciate pointing out how unlikely this is. I do. This is, and that's important to the story, that it's extremely unlikely, like astronomically unlikely. That's important to the story.
Yeah, so the mathematics of it is very unlikely as well.
What's that?
The actual mathematics of it, for it all to work out, you know, it's fucking difficult.
No doubt.
Okay. But even if an alien went to do it or somebody else went to do it, that's what I'm saying. The figuring of it all out would be fucking... You can't just pick and choose. It would have to be a specific time. As you said, the end times, could only be one time. You couldn't do this once a week and have a go until it got right. You'd have one go at it. And if you fucked it up, you couldn't go at it again for X years. It would be... Because you're using the planets themselves.
Yeah, you'd need another Mercury, first of all.
Yeah.
That's the first problem.
Have potted the black. What do we do now? Black's gone. Right.
So here's something I learned along my journey of investigation, that Mercury is traveling at 3,800 kilometers per second around the sun. So, and I said that very, very carefully. We measure bullets in feet per minute, or feet feet per minute, or kilometers per minute, or miles a minute, or things like that. This is in kilometers per second. That's how fast that planet is going around.
Oh yeah. Planets move at extraordinary speeds.
So I did a bad, ugly math estimate, and it looks to me like at that speed, it would take 5.5 months at that speed for Mercury to get to the area of Jupiter. 5.5 months of that.
So you're taking the speed that it's orbiting at now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it wouldn't be. Whenever it could thump, it would.
It might go faster. It might be slower. I don't know. I don't know how to say that.
The vector will definitely change. You know, the speed of it.
It would almost definitely change. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely would change. Yeah. Right. Sorry. So it's changed. We're going with the story that it takes 5 months to get there.
Something like that. I don't really know. I mean, that's, like I said, that's dirty math, and I'm not a mathematician aside from that. I mean, it's dirty math for someone who's not good at math.
That's why history's in. This is why it's all in air quotes, man. That was our citation.
The whole thing's in air quotes. What did you call them? Upside down commas? Is that what you call them?
Air quotes.
Something like
that. Right. So it takes 5 months to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what about
it could take less? It could take more. I can't really say.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, it takes 5 months. It takes 6 months. You know, we'll go with 6 because it's half a year and easy to work with. Yeah. But
okay. So then Mercury apparently is not taking a direct line along the planets because it goes around. That is, David goes around the shield bearer. That's implied. That's not directly said in the text, but apparently the shield bearer doesn't stop David. So I'm thinking David goes around the shield bearer.
Well, it's going to have enough gravity from Earth and from Mars and from Venus to start pulling it down before it's even felt by Jupiter's gravity. If you're off by one little tiny degree, you look at anyone that's talking, you've been in the army, man, you talk to snipers. If they're off at the start by 1 degree, they miss by a half mile.
Yeah, absolutely true. Yeah, and it's true in walking someplace too.
Exactly. So they have to go up. And as you said, Mercury has been thumped from underneath by these 5 stones. It's now heading on an upwards tangent. And only if Jupiter is in that same line, like again, we're all assuming that all these planets are going to have to be near enough in alignment for this to work, for the gravity just to pull it back down.
Yeah. And this is going to have to be so crazy perfect.
Have you looked into how often an alignment of the planets of our solar system happens? Or does it even happen?
What alignment? That becomes a question of what alignment do you need? And
well, you would need the gravity. In my opinion, if you've hit it hard enough to knock it out of its orbit, for the possibility and for it to have the speed and strength to get to Jupiter, which is, way out there, it's going to have a lot of power. Now, if you hit it with an awful lot of power, the angle that it's going to go up at with that speed, it's also going to have a hell of a lot of gravity to pull that back down again. Now, if there's nothing between it because the planets are orbiting, this is what I'm saying. You're going to need basically a solar alignment. Just in talk's sake, have you looked up how often that happens?
Well,
if it does at all.
Yes, but it doesn't help. I'll tell you why it doesn't help. Let's say that it maintained exactly the same speed it's at right now. Okay. When it gets out to Venus, even if it's way above Venus, let's say it's traveling at a 20-degree angle to the solar system, right? When it gets above Venus, then Venus would have had to line up with it, right? As it was passing over Venus, or it wouldn't matter. If Venus was on the other side of the sun, it wouldn't help, right?
If Venus is on the other side of the sun, there's nothing to pull it back down. And I would say that for you to get out of the solar system and get the most parabolic rate, if you look at when you throw a ball or anything like that, the greatest distance you get when you throw a ball is in and around the 45-degree angle. So you're going to need a 45-degree angle. So it's aiming up.
Possibly.
Man, like it's a great distance. And it's a lot of force.
I know.
Big distance, and at least I don't think a 20-degree angle would be great enough. That's what I'm saying.
I'm just saying, for example. I'm not saying that would be perfect. I don't know what would be perfect.
Sorry, I did say to you before the stream started, I'm a wee bit snoppy tonight. It's Halloween and I didn't get to spend it with my girls, so I'm a wee bit snottery tonight. So I'm maybe taking it out on Richard. I apologize, but
yeah, buddy, I'll be your punching bag. It's fine.
No, it's all right. Go for it. Right, continue on, man. So it's made
so say all the planets were equidistant from the sun. They're not, but let's say they were, just for easy math. Okay. So at 2 months, it would have to be crossing over Venus, but then at 4 months, it would have to be crossing over the Earth. But then at 6 months, it would have to be crossing over Mars. And then at 8 months, it would arrive.
Right.
Well, it doesn't work like that. The planets, first of all, aren't equidistant.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to point that out. That's okay when you're doing a kind of football.
They'd have to be traveling like in a staggered position, something like that. They'd have to be traveling in order to make that line up and make that work out. So when you say, have you looked for an alignment? Yeah, and that alignment should not be a straight line.
Yeah,
so
even for
what shape should it be? I don't know.
Oh yeah, well the same with the satellites. If Venus was it one way and pulled it this way, and then Earth was it that way and pulled it that way, I can understand that. But everything's moving. Like even the sun is moving through the Milky Way, and flat earthers are all, it's moving too fast and they can't handle it. How you see that picture? But all these things are in movement.
I found out that 1 year on Mars is roughly 2 years on Earth. But it's not twice as far away from the sun. It's not making twice as big a circle. But it's 2 years to 1 year. So are we going faster than or slower than? I mean, there's so much. This would take a supercomputer to figure it out. And I don't
think it takes a supercomputer, man. It's just a matter of looking at it from an outside perspective. Think of it like a record. The inside things travel in a smaller circle. They do travel faster than people on the outside. there is one of the inner planets, and I can't remember off the top of my head, damn 420, but their year is, or their day is longer than their year. Mods.
Planet Mercury is like that.
Yeah, it's Mercury, isn't it? That's the one we're talking about. Yeah,
Yes.
Everything's in motion. There's an awful lot. You can't just go and simplify the math. You
Right,
can
I'm
simplify
not
pi
even
to
gonna try.
3.14597 and do some calculations. And some other guy's going to do it to 3.14, and then someone's going to use the pi button on the computer. And everybody's going to get a rough estimate, and that's fine. But when you're talking about the planets and what's moving, the way that they have to be, you could probably, in all seriousness, man, if you could set up, and this actual story, you could set a simulation up and see how long it would be. You say about the end times, and this will happen at the end times. A supercomputer, now you would need a supercomputer for this, but you could probably input all the parameters that you want, and there is the solar system set up. They'll hit go on the rules, and you can fast forward time as long as you want, and you can go and actually see if this would ever, or how long it would be till it happened. You can actually test this theory that way. We could do a GoFundMe for time on a supercomputer for Richard.
Oh, no, I'd need someone who knew what they was doing, and I just have to tell them what the story is.
Yeah,
I
well, they
wouldn't know
can
what to
program
do.
it for you, man. We'll do another GoFundMe for that, or put a ditch out into the internet. But what I'm saying is, what you're putting across, because it's falsifiable, we can actually go and get a supercomputer and check and see if this...
Yeah, you could.
Now, going from that to ask you another question, if we ran the simulation, taking all the information that you have and double checking, like we had that comparison with Mercury being grey, which it is mostly on the internet, but if looked at with the naked eye, it does have a big chunk in the middle that has that brown. You know, you were right on that. We were calling you out in the chat, give you credit where credit's due. To the naked eye, that is what it looks like. But we could take all this information and put it in a supercomputer. If we put that information into a supercomputer and found out that this was never possible,
Right.
what would you?
Well, first of all, I'm convinced this is true, and I'm thoroughly convinced.
So
Let
even,
me-
sorry to interrupt,
let me
but
finish.
yeah, go on. No, go for it. Shut me up, all right?
Okay. I mean, it's not that I don't love you, man, but you asked me a question.
Yeah, I did. No, and I've said that to you before.
Okay, so just because I'm convinced something is true doesn't make it true. Okay? So if you ask me what would happen to me, I'd say that can't happen. That's what I would say. I would wonder what was wrong with the supercomputer, why there was a glitch. If I said a word wrong, I would wonder if I'd said a word wrong and messed up the whole works. That's what I would wonder. I wouldn't think that it's impossible. I wouldn't have a doubt about that.
Well, these
Now, were it proven to me that it could not happen, not that this model doesn't work, that wouldn't be good enough for me. You'd have to prove to me that it can't happen, and I don't think that could be shown, actually, that it can't happen. Yes, it's exceedingly unlikely. I already know that. I can see that just looking at the story. It's extremely unlikely, but that wouldn't shake me at all, actually.
Right. Well, these same sort of computer programs and same sort of models are used to set out the examples that you're using to base your story on. Like, you're taking the evidence of Mercury, and you're taking the orbit of Mercury, and you're taking all this information that you've reached out and took from the scholars and took from the people who have done the studies. They've used these programs on these supercomputers to come up with the answers that you're using as the basis for your story.
I don't know what answers I'm using.
No, but what I'm trying to say is, you said to me that Mercury travels at this speed.
Yeah,
You know,
we just mapped how fast it goes.
we
It's
don't
just
look
time
out.
over distance.
Yeah, but we don't look at. But we've taken this information, right? That we've looked out the window of Earth and seen they travel at this speed. They've been doing this, that, and the other. You know, we have then made computer simulations, and you would agree with them on the computer simulations and things like that. We discussed before, Jupiter is in a very weird place. Jupiter should be.
Well, I didn't ever agree to that. I said that was a theory that's proposed.
I said we've discussed
and
this. Yeah,
it's
we've discussed
it's
before.
a strong theory.
Yeah, we've
I didn't
discussed
agree
this.
or disagree.
No. We just talked about it. But this is what I'm saying. The information you're using is coming from scholarly sources. These same scholarly people put their information and their faith in air quotes again in these supercomputer simulations. And you agree that the universe is 4.3 billion years old. Or whatever, 14,
I don't know. It's old. I don't know how old it is.
Yeah, well, I think they shown one that was 11 million, and now it was originally 14, and now they've seen one that was down to 11, or whatever it is. You agree that it's billions of years old. We've used simulations to find that. The CBD, background radiation, and all that there. These simulations are, and then you're going to use a simulation to falsify it. You can't pick and choose between.
Right. And actually, I don't agree with any of the simulations that you just quoted. None of them, actually. So for me, it's a really bad example. But still, I get your point. But
would that not be called confirmation bias? If I showed you a supercomputer that ran a simulation for possibly 500 million years, and this that you're describing was shown, we can show that it'll never happen. And if we could show that it would never happen, you would think that there's something wrong with the supercomputer rather than think that you're wrong.
Well, I've been trying to get to this small point for just for the audience. If they're interested in seeing how the planets turn in comparison to each other in an actual working model, I really recommend, which you do have to download a small program to run it, but I really recommend Solar System Scope. And Solar System Scope is one of these models that you're talking about, but it just gives the rotation of the planets and the movement of the stars over time. Very little of the movement over the stars over time, and that way you could look up where the planets were the very moment you were born, which is interesting.
Have you heard of Universe Sandbox? I've been considering getting Universe Sandbox. It is a simulator for the universe, and you can input information like we're talking about and actually run the simulation and see.
Well, that sounds like that would do what you were describing.
But obviously with a supercomputer, they can do it for 500 million years, and they can do it with a hell of a lot more probability and accuracy. But there is Universe Sandbox and things like this where you can do a wee basic one. If you ever look up Anton Petrovov on YouTube, he does sci-fi. He does information on the universe and things like that and videos like that. Easem Works knows him. Easem, jump out, post a link, put it back in the chat. Richard always usually watches back and sees the chat. This guy uses Universe Sandbox, man, and actually puts a free link for it in his chats. So it's possible to download, and yeah, that's something I definitely look into.
I can't see needing to look further than 100 years. I can't see that.
Pardon?
I can't see having to look more than 100 years.
So you think that if it did happen, it will happen within the next 100 years?
Within 100, yeah, easily.
Perfect. Well, let's get these are all parameters that were being set. So if I ran it for 500 million years and it never happened, and you're saying it will happen.
If you ran it for 1 year.
No, what I mean virtually. If I ran it virtually.
I mean, if you ran it, I meant to say, when I said 1, I meant to say 100. Sorry, I left off some zeros.
Sorry.
If you ran it for 100 years, it's either there or it's not.
Yeah, you can set the time in it and run it virtually back and forth and stuff like that. We'll look into it later. I'll have a wee look about that.
We don't need to go back.
No.
For obvious reasons, we don't need to go back. Mercury's still on course.
But that's what I'm saying. We can input these values. We can actually create a rock that will split, and it'll all be maybe about 70 or 80% accurate. Supercomputer will obviously do it 100% accurate, but it's definitely something that we can look into, man. I think it's Universe Sandbox it's called.
That could be interesting.
Yeah, we could, definitely. So, continue on. 6 months, it's just collided.
I don't know that it's 6 months. I'm not trying to nail it down like that. Anyway, more than 5 minutes, less than 30 years, Mercury would be at the range to be sucked into Jupiter. Being sucked into Jupiter, it would go around Ganymede. That is, David avoids the shield bearer. And David hits the giant in the forehead with a stone, which is only identification. Of course, Mercury did not put the storm in the face of Jupiter, but at a distance, that is actually the first thing that you could see, it being larger than any of the moons, and actually approximately 2 Earths wide. And the great red eye that's in its belly right now, that it looks to me is reforming in its forehead. And people would say, well, typically it doesn't necessarily do that. I understand that. But would go around the shield that's Ganymede, and would cut off the giant's head with the brass helmet. That's the moon Io, the brassy-looking moon Io. With the sword of Goliath, that would be the shiny, silvery-looking one, or Europa. So then that would be a electrical discharge and collisions and splintering of all three of those bodies, Mercury, Io, and Europa. And then they would be cast into Jupiter. Of course, Jupiter doesn't have a hard outer surface. From what we can tell, most of it's gas.
Yeah, it's a gassy giant with possibly a liquid hydrogen spinning core.
Right.
Or yeah, it is liquid hydrogen, isn't it? Like a metal? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Liquid metallic hydrogen is what NASA says.
Yeah, that's the name for it. Yeah, I said it wrong. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, they're all the right words. So then that would, if it's saying what I believe it's saying, it would be throwing fireballs of molten mixed oxygen and hydrogen and sulfur and iron and some other trace elements in those two moons into the outer atmosphere of Jupiter. Now, the outer atmosphere of Jupiter is, I'm more than I'm going to play it safe, more than 95% hydrogen. Now, of course, hydrogen is pretty much a bomb waiting to go off. Gaseous hydrogen.
It's a bomb waiting to go off if you add oxygen and fire.
Right, that's what I just said.
Yeah. But you said it's a bomb. But you. Okay, no, go on ahead. Yeah.
I'm talking about electrical discharge because the differential charge between the inner and outer solar system and the impacts, that is, Mercury comes from the inside, it would be positively charged. It would go toward the outside, that would be negatively charged, comparatively speaking. And you'd have impact and electrical discharge simultaneous. So if it splits the water in Europa, that would give plenty of hydrogen and oxygen. Or if it splits any good amount of it,
it would
give
some
plenty of hydrogen and oxygen to Io, the helmet of the giant.
But yeah, it would definitely give it plenty in relative to what we have lying in the backyard. And it would definitely be plenty, but relative to the size of Jupiter, I don't think that it would be plenty. These are moons of Jupiter for a reason, because they're tiny relative to the size of Jupiter. It's fucking huge. As you said,
it is.
The eye of Jupiter is twice the size of Earth. Are these moons bigger or smaller than Earth?
Much smaller.
Much smaller. So we have got possibly, 1%. Again, we're pulling numbers out of our arse as you were pulling numbers randomly. I'm going to say 1% of the mass of Jupiter is just been introduced with oxygen. That's not going to be enough to create.
Not even.
No,
Probably
not even
that
And
much.
if you fart and throw a Zeus discharge in there of electrical energy, it's still, you need oxygen to go with the hydrogen to create a bomb, to create an explosion, to create fire. It needs that to, but I'm just pointing that out. It's a very small amount.
Sure.
So again, if we're going with just by the sizes of the planets and using the information that's come from the scholars and things like that, it's a damn small amount of oxygen, because one of them moons, for talk's sake, is supposedly thought of as ice covered with a water ocean. Water underneath. It's H2O, so a third of that is hydrogen. So we're not even using the whole moon. We're using only 2/3 of the moon.
2/3 of it,
and that's us taking it as 100% water, not even taking into account the core. Not only are we going to need these bits and bobs and ingredients, we're genuinely going to have, and I hate to use the phrase, but we're going to need a finger of God on top of all this for this to happen.
If all this actually happens, people are going to notice.
Oh, yeah, definitely people would notice. But what I'm saying is, we were talking earlier about things that would happen and the amount of eggs that would happen. It is definitely possible for you to get a double yolker in every single box. By using the math and the amount of things that's in these planets, if you added it all up together, plus, minus, and all that, and hit equals, Jupiter wouldn't explode. You will literally need the finger of God.
I'm counting on it not exploding. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but Okay, go on ahead. Continue with your story. Sorry, you're...
Yeah, I'm counting on it being ignited to be the brightest star in the sky. I'm not counting on it exploding.
Well, when I
Not
said
at all.
exploding, I meant the sun is basically a controlled explosion.
That's a theory.
It's a theory, yeah, but it's I think it's been proven. I think we can go further than saying it's a theory.
Actually, no.
It's not like evolution.
No, actually, there's a lot of evidence against that. But
A lot of evidence. Well, I use the controlled explosion as a paraphrase. It's not a description of how the sun works, but I can guarantee you that there's people out there that know exactly how the sun works, and we can use the light that comes off it. We can use the spectrum of light to tell what they're actually burning inside and what it's made of. We can tell by the amount that's burnt off by day and how much it shrinks by what the mass is. You know, there's a lot of information out there. We are pretty damn sure how the sun works. And for you to want the Jupiter to turn into the same thing and for the same reaction to happen, if just using the ingredients that you're talking about, you would need the finger of God to add to all that. There's not enough ingredients there. If you're trying to make a cake, it's like you're leaving out the egg.
Fair enough. Of course, I'm not talking about all the ingredients that are there, not by a long shot. I'm only talking about the things that are most plentiful. There's a lot more involved, and I'm no chemist. I don't know.
This is the whole point of the story, man. I don't mean to come across as rude, but you did always say to me, ask questions. So I'm asking questions.
Sure. No. I think you're being helpful, especially to the audience. And I don't mind scrutiny. Scrutiny's fine. But there is a limit to what I do know. There's a limit to what I understand.
Yeah, I would never. One thing I would never consider you of is Dunning-Kruger. I don't think that you assert. You always say that you don't know enough, and you don't know. You're not an expert. You always do that. It's not Dunning-Kruger because you call out that you know better than everyone else. I wouldn't ever accuse you of that.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think I know better. I don't. Yeah. So the story, as I understand it, has chunks of the moon Io going through the outer atmosphere of Jupiter. So maybe in some places it would be penetrating twice. I'm getting a bunch of echo. I don't know if the audience would be right now. The echo went away. Thank you. Whatever you did.
I did absolutely nothing. It was all on your end.
Maybe it's on my end. I know this microphone can't hear my earbuds, but anyway. I don't know how it's happening. Doesn't matter. Okay, so according to the story, David takes most of the armament of the giant Goliath into his tent in Bethlehem. So that gives us an alignment. So I can say that this is supposed to happen in front of Virgo. Okay, so say it took 5 months to get there, then Jupiter would have to be already in Virgo or within 5 months of being in Virgo when this happens. Okay. So actually, we can narrow it down to once every 12 years.
Yeah.
So we don't have to look at every year. So I guess that would help in a computer model.
Well, no, the computer model would probably still run through them 12 years to keep things specific. But if you're skipping it every 5-10 years at a time, 12 years is just 2 steps. It would be fine.
Okay. I don't know about those things.
Tony says there's no echo. We're sounding good. Thank you, Tony. Thanks, everybody, for turning up. I don't think I shouted out to Tug and Purple. Purple rhymes with orange. Thank you very much. Richard, if you don't know Purple, you should definitely give the man a sub. He does a couple of streams a week and actually makes time for people also over here in the UK, which is very much appreciative of him.
Well, I have noticed some of the comments by Purple Rhymes with Orange. Did not know there was a channel. Did not know that.
There is a channel, and if you look, their moniker is like a triceratops. They went to, is it Ken Ham with the Ark?
No,
right?
Okay.
And they wore we all thought we were going to get to see them on screen, and when the camera went round, there was Diana. I don't know if you know Diana, the Lavender Lady. The Lavender Lady was there, and they turned around, and the Lavender Lady was standing beside Triceratops. They had a whole mask on. It's class. No. And I think the mask is like from when they were a kid. It's ages old. No, it was brilliant. Yeah. And just as I think it was Strike, it was on his channel possibly. So big love out for Strike. Passed away there quite recently, But let's not get all sad. Richard, continue on with your story.
I really do want to be considerate of other people and anyone who's lost anyone. You know, I'm sorry for your loss. I really truly am.
Say Strike's
I've
Friday
lost
night
people too.
Say Strike's Friday night movie nights. I didn't make them all. I only made one every 3 weeks because that was the Friday night I was free. The weekend I went to the girlfriend's, and even on a Saturday morning when I was waking up and going to work, they're all sitting there and they're all drunk and they're all making fun of young Earth creationism, and they had a wee counter in the corner and all for stupid and then past stupid. No. An awful lot of love for Shy Strike and Purple and Diana Lavender Lady. Give them a strike. Angie 666. Give them a sub. Not a strike. Don't give them a strike. Give them a sub.
Not that kind of strike. No.
Yeah, no. It's a good community there. Really good community. Jump in, stay. You know, it's banter crack. It's just good fun. They're all good people.
I should have to look into them. Let's see, where was I? Okay, so he takes most of the brass armor of the giant into his tent in Bethlehem, which would mean Virgo. So most of the moon Io would not be stopped by the planet Jupiter, but pass through. And then he takes the head of and I'm skipping a little part. I'm going to come back to it. I haven't forgotten it. So then David takes the head of the giant back to before Saul. So a chunk of the moon Io is propelled back toward the sun, back toward the center of the solar system. But as soon as he cuts off the head of the giant, the army of Philistines first run away, and then the army of Israel chases. Yes. And I think Jim mentioned something about this during a bit of a rant, and I don't think he knew what he said, and I tried to say, yes, that's right, but we were moving way too fast. The ignition of that propelling chunks of the moon Io and Europa and the planet Mercury in all directions, and a lot of it being soaked up.
Yeah, just interrupt if I don't mind. The universe is fucking huge in multiple directions. For that one bit to go back down towards the sun, again, we're talking gravity, we're talking timing. I appreciate you adding all these because these are specific things that we can go into and we can add and that we can actually look for when and if we run a simulation.
Yeah,
you know, these are falsifiable.
I'm leaving out a lot of detail, actually.
Well, what I'm saying is these are falsifiable claims.
Sure, they could be true and they could be false. Yeah, but it's something that would happen in reality that you can test.
Exactly.
Right. Unlike a lot of religious claims, it's kind of different from that.
That was the point I was trying to make. Yeah.
I appreciate that, and I agree with you. It's different. Okay, so then. That would cause a lot of could cause collisions between those chunks being propelled back out of Jupiter by the explosion of the outer atmosphere and something else like that. I don't know exactly how that's going to happen, and I can't even verify what's in Jupiter. I have to just go with we crashed a probe in there, and this is what we think it is.
Oh, no. So you're going to go with the right? Okay, I'm just pointing out that you're at this particular point because it matches with your story. You're going with...
No, that's not fair. No, that's not fair. We actually did send a probe. We did not create a model of a probe.
No. That's what I'm saying. Yes, we created a probe, but these are all scientists that do run simulations to make sure that these probes land.
I don't think simulations are hard science. I don't think science thinks that simulations are hard science.
I believe that mathematics would be... I was going to say mathematics is God, but...
but some people, you might be right.
You know, yeah. Okay, I didn't mean to come across as derogatory. I do apologize. It's just that phrase is used. You know, whenever people are talking about a story and they say it's either cherry picking or did you not pick that to match your story. So that's the reason I wanted to say it. I didn't want to say cherry picking because I think that's rude. I don't think you're cherry picking. I think you're maybe possibly seeing what you want to see that matches your story.
I don't trust models that predict unless they're extremely simple.
The same mathematics that predicts the simulation predicts the people to get to Mars with their probes.
Okay, well, no one's gotten to Mars yet.
No, well, not people. The people that send the probes to Mars. You know, the same MAS that runs them simulations is the same MAS that they use to send the probes to Mars.
I understand that, but there's a difference between successfully getting one there and then extrapolating out from there. I just don't think that's... I'm not ready to accept it. Cool. I'm not ready to say I trust it. I don't understand what they're doing.
That's totally fine, man. I just want to make these points as we go along.
So when I say I trust what they say about the chemistry of Io and Europa and of Jupiter, well, we actually like sent things that test chemicals there. And we actually looked at prismatic light and how chemicals reflect off prismatic light. And we got readings from that prismatic light. I mean, it's pretty hard science. It's not saying we think that. It's not we think.
Oh, yeah, I would totally 100% agree with you. And what you're saying, an awful lot of what you're saying has been confirmed by physical evidence, by being there and checking things and stuff like that there. And what we do is in science is there's an awful lot of it is mathematics and predictability, but it's based on evidence. We're not plucking things out of the sky. You know, there is basis there. No. I would never use the word faith. You know, there is always evidence. We stand on the shoulders of who came before us. I don't know where that quote came from, but that's how science works. You know, we don't.
I guess the only problem I have with really extensive models is that I think we now have models based on models, and I just think we've gone too far with that, and I think we need more.
Well, as you would disagree with me in certain points, I would disagree with you that that's a talking point from people who have certain confirmation bias, you know, and they're saying,
oh, almost definitely.
Yeah, you know, and there is certain talking points that in the community and in these discussions that are used, and you know how much I love you, Richard, big man, all the rest of it, and sometimes I just need to use them for the audience to point out and to make the point, purely because if I say that phrase, you'll understand exactly what I mean. I hope you don't take it in any rude stance. It's not meant like that. It's just meant this is the point, and if I say these 5 words, I can get that point across a hell of a lot easier than explaining it to you, you know?
Sure. I think to some extent, because I'm trying to be very, very specific, I have to really hedge my bets. I have to be really careful what I will and won't agree to.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's why I like to punk and prod and just get in there. I just want you to know when I come across as an asshole, I'm just Irish. I've been told multiple times that I come across as aggressive on stream by multiple different people. Even my fucking mother said to me, yeah, you come across as aggressive on the phone to me sometimes. And I'm like, I just swear I don't want to be aggressive. Because I appreciate these shows. They're great fun. And I hope the audience is enjoying. I think we've got 14 people watching now. So whoop, whoop. Wow. And that's really do appreciate everyone coming in and listening to us. I'm just a troll with a brain. And I don't know, Richard's just a heretic. But we go with it.
It's working so far. Why not?
I'm enjoying it. And I do enjoy it, man. Right. You're going to have to tell a little bit of the story because my dog has now went from staring at me to sitting beside me making noises. So I'm going to have to let him out.
Yeah, go tend to the dog and I'll keep everybody busy in the meantime.
Yeah, tell a random story, man. Tell a random story about your life. Something when you were a teenager. You're going out and meeting girls. Did you own a motorcycle when you were a kid? Did you have long hair? Pick a random story. Go for 2.5.
Yeah, I had crazy long hair when I was in my late teen years. Some of it was, you know, as much as 6 inches long. It was just crazy long hair. But I got over it. I have no idea what you guys would want to hear. I don't have my monitor screen working. I don't see side chat. Maybe I could fix that. Oh, here we go. Live comments. That would probably be better if it works. See, I'm learning stuff every day. Sorry for the boredom, guys. I don't think I'm very good as a storyteller.
Line your bed. Line your bed. Go on later. Go on later. Go away. Right, I'm back. I heard a little bit of you used to have long hair and something to do with your figuring out live chat.
Yeah. I just found the live comments button in the screen that I can see. It didn't work. I mean, I hit it. It turned color.
Well, they're trying to
I still don't see the live comments.
They're trying to figure out what they are. I said there's 14 people watching. Then we got 13 people and 1 cat. Then we've got 12 people, 1 cat, 1 floating eye. And then it's 11 people, 1 cat, 1 floating eye, and a rodent.
Oh, then Inquisitive Quandaries here. Hello.
Sorry. So, where were we? I've sort of lost that. Where my trail of thought. Letting that damn
I
dog
was
in.
at the armies running away.
Go for that. Yes.
And what Jim Majors had said, and I believe he's right, that would be collisions. The description of the army of Philistine running away would be impacts, and then the army of Israel chasing would be further impacts. That it's calling the asteroid belt two separate asteroid belts and calling them the armies. And that's true to some extent. There's definitely some kind of a separation there. The larger rocks are to the outside, the smaller rocks are to the inside. So I think that all works pretty good right there. So then they all run away and they chase them even onto Ekron. That is the valley. That is the space that's between Jupiter and Mars, that area.
Okay, so just to clarify, the two different meteor belts or the two different asteroid belts that they're out there at the minute, they are the armies. And when all this is going off and happening and Io's going back towards Earth and all that's happening, these then after get scattered. The asteroid belts, because of all this is happening, the asteroid belts then scatter as well. That's the two armies running.
Only in a certain area.
So not
Only
the
near
yeah.
Jupiter.
So it's not like
it wouldn't be all of it.
Perfect. That's what I was asking. That's the point I was trying to
wouldn't
make.
be it.
So you're
No,
just saying that some
it would
asteroids are knocked out and some asteroids are knocked out.
Say it would like knock a hole in the hula hoop.
Perfect.
Knock a piece out. How
Yeah,
big
yeah,
of a piece,
that-
I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm just trying to define. That's what I'm saying. It's not the entire asteroid belt being knocked out. Flew past, grabbed 6 or 7 of them, they get pulled out, and another one went the other way, grabbed a few of them and pulled them out.
Something like that.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. The story's not exacting enough for me to tell something like that, actually. It just doesn't say. Okay, so then that
I appreciate you being
be...
honest like that, Richard, and actually just saying that. Rather than stating your point, giving your answer, you're actually saying that you don't know enough to be specific in that. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, I don't even know near enough. Yeah, I don't see any point in lying. I don't think that lies are productive.
You get
and
caught
I don't
out in
think
them
that
too,
lies-
don't you?
I mean, I have a great amount of distaste. I'll put it that way, for false narratives written by mankind to support the Bible. In fact, that really pisses me off.
Sorry, you actually went a wee bit choppy in my end. I don't know if it was a stream or anything, but could you just repeat that? You went, it really pisses me off, and then you went choppy. I don't know what annoys you.
Things like the Christians got a hold of Josephus and changed a few lines.
Yeah.
That really gets on my nerves. Because they're using a lie to support something that's true, in my opinion. And that just makes the truth look like a lie. So I have no appreciation for people who have done that in the past or that are doing it today.
Man, we
there
could
are
do
people doing it today.
pull in the whole slavery thing as well, like, you know, using the Bible to justify slavery.
Sure. So, I mean, they do all kinds of terrible things, and they really should not.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. So we've got chunks of rocks flying all over the place in the solar system. And this may be where we're talking about fire raining from the sky. And that's in the book of Revelation. And that might be talking about that, you know, no singular really big rock falling and making it all the way to the planet, but lots of stuff like that, you know, lots of meteorites may be occurring directly after that. But David has already put it in order where the head of the giant, or a chunk, I don't know how much is a chunk, a mountain-sized piece of the moon Io would be brought back to Jerusalem, or founded in peace.
No, sorry, just to say, that word is obviously Hebrew that you said, yes?
Right.
Is that the Hebrew word for Jerusalem?
Yeah.
Okay. It's just that's the first time you've used it tonight on the stream. You've always said Jerusalem in that way that you said. What way do you say it? Oh, no, it was Bethlehem. It was Bethlehem you were saying.
I said Bethlehem.
Yeah, you said different like that. Sorry.
Yeah.
So that's Jerusalem. Go on ahead.
Yeah, the English pronunciation of Yerushalayim is, well, you know the word shalom means peace.
Oh, yeah.
Yerushalayim means founded peace, literally.
And that is what Jerusalem
implies
means.
Peacefully. What's that?
And Jerusalem is that. That is Jerusalem.
Yeah. Which is not true of the area Jerusalem.
Oh, we'll not get
Not
into
a
the
place
politics.
on the planet.
We're not
We
even
can get
going to
into
do that.
later.
Don't. No. War in the Middle East. Who, like, what
Yeah,
is
exactly.
it?
Like there's always been war in the Middle East. Like it's anyway.
Yeah, but
All
that's
right,
people
so,
doing that. People do that, man.
So I'm saying in the story there, when it uses the word Jerusalem, it's referring to the whole planet Earth, that this earth was founded peacefully.
Well, that would make more sense. Why would God pick on this little tiny area and make them people and that? If it's going to do something, you would expect it to be worldwide.
Yeah, well, obviously their God is extremely prejudiced and is choosing a small, ancient Iron Age people to introduce the truth to, which is ridiculous.
Which is ridiculous. If you're going to introduce it to the people of Earth, you would introduce it to everyone on Earth.
Right, which is what I think happened, and I see a lot of evidence for that, but that's another topic.
Well, just to say, Richard, we have hit the hour mark, right? Should we?
No.
I'm not going to wrap it up, man. I'm actually having a good conversation. If you're having a good conversation, I was wondering if we can give it. I'm happy to go another maybe half hour and then 15 minutes of questions.
Okay.
At bare minimum.
So I'll tell you what. Let's get to the part of the story where
well, don't skip, man. Do not skip. I'm happy to do a fucking episode 1.42. The only reason I mentioned it is because we have covered an awful lot of stuff tonight, and there has been a few people in, and if anybody wants to throw in a question, start thinking about questions. That's all I wanted to say. Start thinking about questions. So when we get to the end of it, you have already had 15, 20 minutes or whatever the fuck time to think about questions. And when I give you 30 seconds, you only have to copy what you have written down beside you, what you have thought of. You know, there's been an awful lot covered tonight, which I have absolutely loved. I think this has been a really good, and will continue to be, a very good episode. So just start thinking about questions. And Richard, please continue, because it has been very good tonight. Please continue.
Okay, so I think that a chunk of the moon Io propelled back toward the sun is going to be caught in the gravitational field of the Earth. That is, David brings the head of the giant, a small portion of his total brass armor meaning Io, back before Saul and back to Jerusalem. You'll notice that Saul is not in Jerusalem when David brings it before Saul to Jerusalem.
Can I say something as well? Jerusalem won't be where Jerusalem is, because for this to happen, the gravitation is now changed. Again, you're assuming that Earth's going to stay in the same orbit it is. Mm-hmm. Once Mercury leaves its orbit, everybody in Jerusalem's dead.
Why?
Because it's all a balanced system.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's been working for about 4 billion years.
No, I'm not saying the system doesn't work. I'm saying, can we be certain that the orbit of the Earth is dependent on the orbit of Mercury?
Well, okay, I'm going to give you the credit where credit due. You did say that this happens over a possible, now again, random. We're not being specific. Everything's in inverted commas.
I can't.
Yeah. You didn't mention over a year between Mercury leaving and hitting Jupiter. So we're talking within 7-8 months. So possibly Earth may not have left its orbit. We weren't hit. We aren't thrusted. But our weather has definitely changed. You know, magnetic fields have definitely been changed. We're probably suffering with tornadoes and storms, and, you know, we're not having a good time. The balance on Earth, if we may not have been thrown out of our orbit, we're definitely not having a great time.
I think you would be right. I think that this is at least going to tweak certain things and change some smaller things. It may not involve us immediately hurling off away from the sun into outer space into certain cold death. I'm not sure that that's involved. It doesn't seem like that's described, at least in the story. And in fact, this is one of those stories that knit a lot of different parts of the Bible together, which is why, even though we're getting closer to the end of the story, I am nowhere near the end of the story of David and Goliath. Nothing even close. Nothing even similar.
No, more episodes is better, man. More views. And just to say on that topic, Richard, not to diverge from the topic or anything here, but just you mirror my videos. So if anyone goes to your channel, it gives me a view. And being the whole YouTube thing, you deserve more, man. Download them and re-upload them to yours and just put mirror in the back of it. But give yourself
you're very kind. I have no idea how to do that. I would bug you on how to do that later.
There's a website, you just hit a button and it downloads an app, and then that app downloads it for you, and you just re-upload the video. You know how to upload a video.
Yes.
Yes, so you just use this app to download the video that you've watched, and you just re-upload it. And do that
I
on your
appreciate
channel.
your generosity.
It's not generosity, man. You're 90% of the show.
Okay, I appreciate your fairness.
Everybody is coming here to see you. I'm just here to ask questions. And on that topic, continue with your story.
I think that's important too. Okay, so a chunk of the moon Io being some 90% yellow sulfur, 10% iron, according to as best as we can tell. Crashing into the Earth's atmosphere would certainly catch on fire. From what I can tell,
it's already on fire, man. It's probably already on fire.
It might extinguish between Jupiter and here. I don't know.
I'm thinking our atmosphere would. I'm thinking when we run, if the simulation gets run, when Mercury gets ripped out with that much speed and all the rest of it, I'm thinking our atmosphere's gone. I'm thinking burnt off solar. I'm thinking not good. We're not having a good time. We're going to leave it at that. Go on ahead.
Well, that's interesting that you should say that, because there is a scare in one of the stories where people are worried about losing their oxygen. It's so funny you should say that. That's really interesting.
Well, oxygen's only 20.
I wonder how many people are going to have the same thought you just had.
Well, I know it will say it's allegory and colloquial and all that there, but oxygen being breath, most people would consider that air, and it is only technically, 23.5%? Oxygen, 23.5% of our atmosphere.
I believe that's right, yeah.
Nitrogen 71, yeah. And then argon and bits and bobs is the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I interrupt and tangent again. Continue. Thank you, Geo, for turning up.
Welcome, Geo Sam.
Yeah.
Although I can't see the side chat, and I apologize for that. I just can't see it. So a chunk of the moon Io, how much of it, I don't know, approximated as the size of a mountain, becomes a meteorite burning into the Earth's atmosphere. So that should burn a bright, bright blue. And it should be making a lot of light because it's dense. There's an iron content in it.
But can I just interrupt and ask anyone in the side chat who is a moderator, can they please look up on the chart what metal burns blue? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it is, so I'm not going to guess. So there's
a metal that burns blue?
Yeah, like certain metals, like sodium will burn one color, potassium will burn another color. So if something in the sky is going to burn blue, there is a thing that burns blue. There is an element that we can go and look this up.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know.
I
was talking about the sulfur content. I think because of all of the prophecies that I see that the flame will be blue. The Christian text only reads, falls from the sky as a lamp. It burns in like bright as a lamp. It doesn't mention a color.
Be mindful. I think magnesium is bright white. Magnesium is the brightest of white.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. There is a spectral analysis that you can do on certain elements to tell you when you burn an element, it sends out a color. That's how when I was mentioning back to the sun, how we can tell what it's actually made of because of the light spectrum. When you do a light spectrum of all the lights, you're bound to have seen from electromagnetic radiation, from ultraviolet right up to infrared, and the different colors, like a rainbow.
Sure.
Yeah. These different metals will burn at these different colors and give out these lights. And if you look at one, you can have a certain section here, then there'll be a blank spot. Then another section will appear and a blank spot. It's basically a barcode in the light spectrum for what was burnt. So by going
back, if anyone wants to look into that, those are called Fraunhofer lines. And if you want to look at NOAA's cameras, we have 16 different cameras looking at our sun right now. If you want to go, it's on NO.
So you do know what I mean, yeah.
What?
So you do know what I'm talking about then?
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. By something burning in the sky as a bright blue color, we will be able to look up and see if that thing is a bright blue color and actually see if it is part of Io.
Mm-hmm.
It's just another thing that we can look up, another thing that we can check, another falsifiable.
It'd be really interesting. NASA reports 90% yellow sulfur, 10% iron as the chemistry of, but I haven't looked into what trace elements, if any. And it might be interesting to see if there's a metal that burns blue, which we also find in mercury. I haven't looked in that.
Again, man, that's exactly it.
Io.
We are using your story to make a prediction.
That's what you're doing, yeah.
And predictions can be falsified or confirmed. So if we go forward and you get confirmed, you can, I was going to make a rude joke, but you can go and be happy. If you get confirmed and you're corrected. Again, if you get falsified, you can look at it as your interpretation is wrong. You can go back to it on that specific thing.
I already know that yellow sulfur burns bright blue.
Well, these are things that we can look into. This is what I like, man. We've done an awful lot on that. It's been a very detailed chat tonight. I'm liking this. So continue on.
I could go over the story again sometime in greater detail, but what I'd much rather do is talk about how it's in other religions in almost the same kind of detail. I'd rather actually talk about that.
If we can just continue the conversation where it's going, you are in charge, man. As I say, I'm just here to ask questions. If that's where you feel the conversation needs to go, let's go with that.
Well, I want to finish up David and Goliath first, of course.
Obviously, yeah.
Okay, so the head of the giant ends up in Jerusalem back before Saul, which would be propelled in this general direction, back toward the sun. A chunk of the moon Io would burn in bright blue. If it says it's going to fall into a body of water, poisoning, and this is close to a quote, not perfect. It depends on which text you read. Poisoning the springs and fountains of waters. And the third part of the waters turned to wormwood. So I looked up what wormwood is, and apparently there's a worm that eats wood.
Yeah.
And the droppings of the worm are hallucinogenic to human beings, but it's also extremely bitter. So apparently is absinthe the right word? I think it is.
Sorry, I'm just coughing here. I drank my water the wrong pipe. Give me 1 wee second.
Okay.
Go on ahead.
So if someone knows more about this than me, I think
the last thing I actually heard was there's a worm that it eats wood that if you eat it shit, you get high. That's the
yeah, right. That's right. So apparently they put this in the drink absinthe, but then they have to put a bunch of sugar in it and licorice flavor too to cover up how nasty this stuff is.
Yeah.
And in the United States, that's illegal. You can't buy actual absinthe in the United States.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You have bad laws, and you can't buy Buckfast over there either.
It's apparently really serious stuff.
Oh yeah, you can go to Amsterdam. You can get anything from 70% to 90% absinthe and bad over the counter.
Wow, that sounds crazy. Okay. Sounds crazy to me as an American anyway. Maybe to somebody that's totally normal.
Yeah, well, there's whole shops, man. There was an entire liquor shop that you could go to, and you could actually buy whiskey in a bottle shaped like a revolver.
Okay. Sure, why not?
Yeah. I bought my dad a half bottle of 15-year-old cognac from France, and it was only something like €8.
I don't know how much that is.
€8 to me would probably be about £5 or £6, maybe £7. We'll go on the wrong side and go £7, which would be about $10.
It's no wonder I'm confused. In 2 sentences, you just use the terms quid, sterling, and pound. Are those 3 things interchangeable?
Them 3 things are the exact same thing. 1 quid is the same.
I had no idea.
1 quid is 1 sterling, as also is £1. And then our smaller ones, what would be cents to you, would be pennies for us.
Okay. Oh, we use the term pennies mostly in the United States.
Yeah, and then if you want to get really slang term, a fiver is a flim, a tenner is a bob, and a 20 is a score.
A slim, a bulb, and a score.
Bob, as in B-O-B.
Oh, Bob.
Bob, yeah. So
okay, a bob.
But you don't use them in sentences. It's slang terms, so it'd be like, look, I'll lend you a score, but I wouldn't say in a shop it costs a score. I would say it costs £20. But if you were talking to your friends and back and forth and stuff, you'd be like, look, lend me a score. I'm broke. I need to go out tonight.
Okay, yeah.
Totally sounds normal to me, and everybody else in the chat is gone.
Yeah. It's new. It's new. I'll adjust over time, but for now, it's really
English
new to
money's
me.
very good though. If you actually look at our notes, all your notes are exactly the same. If you look at our notes, there is a mathematical formula that goes with our notes, and they actually are relative to their size, the amount that they're worth. And now that they're plastic, they are one of the best monies out there mathematically, because they're plastic now. They don't wash away. They used to be paper, when you would dissolve them, but. Our fiver is the smallest. Our 50 and hundreds, as they get more worthwhile, they are bigger, and it actually grows relative to a rate on a graph. It's quite mathematical that nobody cares about. But this is the shit that I look up. But I'm a weirdo.
No, that is interesting. It is interesting.
Matt Parker on YouTube, people, look up Matt Parker. He also did an experiment to see if Canadian money smells like maple syrup. It turns out it fucking does. Canadian money also, right? Canadian money also, what made it cool was, this is a complete tangent, but this is why these streams are fun. Canadian money has, if I can't remember what note it is, but if you shine a laser light through the hologram on it, you get the flag, the maple leaf actually shows up on the wall. We can shine a light through it and get a maple light. It's like a wee hologram built in our money.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. And the fact that it smells like maple syrup.
I love maple syrup. I really do. I could consume a lot of that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, Matt Parker, look him up on YouTube. He does these funny experiments. So, yeah. Go with that. And Richard, please continue.
Sure. Happy to.
If you can remember where we were.
So I did a little bit of looking around. And like Jim was saying, I should try to confirm as much of this sort of thing as I can. So, if we have burning sulfur coming into the atmosphere and it crashed into, it would have to be, if it was a mountain-sized chunk of sulfur, it would have to be sticking up out of water for this to work. So it couldn't be comparatively a really deep pool. So I'm thinking it would have to be like a large pond or a small lake, something like that. And then that punches down into that, and then some of the water comes back into that basin. And you have burning sulfur, and you have water hitting up against burning sulfur. So sulfur creates a lot of foamy ash, but then this is some 10% iron. So instead of the ash being like really, really light colored, almost white, it might be more brown. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm listening. No, I'm listening. No, I was intrigued. I was listening. Sorry.
Okay. So the ash would be buoyant because it's sulfur ash, and it has pockets, little air pockets in it, so it's very buoyant. It's very lightweight. The outside of it, because of sudden cooling and the brittleness of the ash, forms holes all over it. So you'd have something brown riddled with holes floating on water, and the water would be very, very bitter. That is, it would be poisoned by the sulfur content. So you would have something that's very much like wormwood, not exactly wormwood, but like wormwood.
Shut up, Anita.
So that would be the wormwood, or the third announcing miracle. Okay, so let's see from there. David never returns home. Once David goes and slaughters the giant, David becomes knit with Jonathan. David never goes home. And then the story stops right after his soul is knit with Jonathan. And some people say they were gay lovers. I don't see that in the text, but I think that,
well, maybe not in the text, but in that day and age, and there was an awful lot of that about. Maybe someone can check and quote me if I'm wrong, but Romans had more sex with other men because women were there for having babies. And what do you think happened in them big bathrooms? They were just, they were gay.
Most likely.
Yeah, that's, there was no apprenticeships and things like that. You could actually, no, we'll not even go into that. But yeah, that's different times. It was different times.
Certainly. Okay, so David's soul gets knit with the soul of Jonathan. That is Saul's son, like a smaller edition of Saul. And
You were very
if
choppy
all of
there.
this goes off
Could you repeat?
perfectly,
Sorry,
then
could
we
you
will
repeat?
have a smaller.
Could you repeat the last 40, 60 seconds there? You choppy as you were real choppy in my end,
I'm
Richard.
sorry.
I
Okay.
got the two of them together and souls, and then you said Saul, and it was choppy. So if you could just repeat that, please.
Sure. Okay, so most of Mercury is supposed to get soaked up by the planet Jupiter. That would be the knitting of the souls. But why is it that they're saying that David's soul is knit with Jonathan's soul? Is because Jonathan is a smaller Saul. And in this model, Saul represents the sun in the middle of our solar system. So then we would have the big sun and then a littler addition of the same thing, another sun.
Jonathan being
And
his
if
son.
all of this goes off perfectly, then from the way I see it, Goliath becomes Jonathan, if you can dig that. And Jonathan is nowhere in the story until that very moment.
You said something and then went, if you can dig that, and then moved on, and it was like, what? I didn't get a chance for it to sink in. Could you repeat that again, please? Somebody turned into somebody?
So I'm saying that when Goliath dies, in this view that I have, when Goliath dies, he becomes Jonathan, which is why Jonathan just appears in the story out of nowhere. He's not even anywhere in the story of David and Goliath, although he's mentioned in other stories before that.
Jonathan being Saul's
he just appears
son.
out of nowhere, Saul's son.
Yes. So after Goliath is dead, he becomes Jonathan. Now, by becoming Jonathan, I just want to narrow this down. By becoming Jonathan, his consciousness moves from one body to the other. His spirit moves. His essence moves.
Well, we're talking about planets, so I don't think that planets have any of those things. But
where from the story did you so that's what I'm saying. You're at this bit you're getting. You didn't get from the story. You're getting this from your interpretation.
Oh, it's only this context. It's definitely in the text, but it's only in in this context does it work.
Well, that's why I'm trying to narrow it down in the text.
Right. Okay, so what the text says about it is that Jonathan glorifies David, and he gets all the glory of the prince. He becomes one with the prince of the King Saul.
Yeah. Okay.
So he becomes glorified in that way, And it goes through like even wearing Jonathan's sword and his robe and his his kingly his princely vestures, all of this sort of thing. Like they trade clothes or something.
Yeah, so Jonathan and David become really good friends and do all them things and trade clothes and all after Goliath is dead.
Yeah, they become one.
Yeah, they become one. Right. Now, Jonathan is Saul's son. Saul is at war. It is possible, even though in the story, as you said before, the story can't cover every last part in detail because it would go on forever and it would just be, you've said that before, or paraphrasing.
It'd be bigger than a library. Yeah.
Yeah,
obviously. It'd be nothing you'd carry around for sure.
Yeah, so Jonathan being Saul's son, the leader of the army, would possibly be there, maybe in training as a general. It would be expected for him to be there and watch what his father's doing because he's to take it over. So there's a good chance of him being there. And the possibility of David and Jonathan being so close as they were before Goliath, as you have admitted, they could be gay lovers. They could be.
No, I didn't admit that.
I did not say that.
I said some people say that.
Some people say. Oh, you admit that the possibility of that is available.
I don't think planets can be homosexual.
No, but
I don't think planets can be sexual at all.
We were talking about trying to find the story of where Goliath turns into Jonathan in the text.
Right.
But in the text, I'm trying to make a different narrative. What I'm putting across is the fact that in the text, there's bits missed out, so Jonathan could be there and would be expected to be there. I'm just giving you a different interpretation. And the fact that when it says Jonathan and David became one, there is a possibility of they becoming gay lovers and becoming one, the implication. And having nothing to do with Goliath. What I'm asking you for is where in the text does it imply that Goliath becomes Jonathan?
Where Jonathan pops up out of nowhere and David is knit with him. And if this happens like I'm saying it would happen, according to what I understand the story to be describing, then it is true that that Jupiter would then be ignited, causing light, like a little sun, and that we would be a binary solar system, and that most of the planet Mercury would be soaked up by that large body Jupiter.
But that's all an interpretation from your point of view.
Well, the text says, and from that point forward.
Well, your very first point, if I don't mean to interrupt.
With the soul of David. That's what the text literally says.
That their souls met together.
That they became one. Their souls were knit.
Right. Well, it's probably more plausible that it was talking about previously, as we have discussed, that they were gay lovers rather than Goliath. In your story, only in your interpretation, is it that Goliath became Jonathan.
Right.
And it sort of needs to be to match with your story. But in the actual text, most people, from my point of view, would look at it as it's saying that they are, a couple. And the fact, as you said, your very first evidence was Jonathan popping out of nowhere. I don't think that Jonathan would be popping out of nowhere. Jonathan just wasn't mentioned in the text previous because it wasn't relative.
No.
He obviously
we're either talking about the words in the text or we're not.
Well, Jonathan popped out of nowhere.
In that part of the story, Jonathan pops out of nowhere. He's just suddenly there. He wasn't
suddenly
even there. Never mentioned.
And as you have said before, when other parts of it's not relative is left out, because if it was all put together, it would be something you couldn't carry about. So up until that point, he wasn't relative to the story. He then suddenly became relative, so he popped up. That's a reason. Right. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay,
that's a good reason.
And then what you're saying is that their souls became one or knitted together or whatever the text said exactly. I'm saying that then, as a continuation from the story, he was popped up because he was important, because him and David then became lovers. Mm-hmm. That is my interpretation of what the story is trying to put out to people.
Sure,
more so.
Proposed.
And now, from that, you're saying that Goliath became Jonathan because it matches your story. I'm asking you, where specifically in the text are you getting the point that Goliath, or is it all interpretation? Does it actually say any word that Goliath, like, it's not going to say Goliath became Jonathan. I'm not asking you for that. I'm not going to do a fucking Jesus is Lord and find exactly this, that. But what part of that text that I haven't explained in what I've said already is left over to explain that Goliath became Jonathan? If I am articulating my words correctly.
I think I've understood the question.
Good, because it's making you think.
No.
Well, you're not answering your first. Well, your first answer was Jonathan popped out of nowhere.
I'm just deciding which one to choose. That's what I'm doing right now. For instance, there is no burial of Goliath. Where's the burial of Goliath?
I don't know. That? You know the text way better than me, man. I'm not a textual expert.
He was the hero of all of Philistines, apparently. Where's the burial?
Are the Philistines not the enemies of the people who wrote the Bible?
They don't bury the body?
Are the Philistines not the enemy of the people who wrote the Bible?
Yes, I know, but where's the burial?
Well, I don't know, and it wouldn't be recorded because the winners get to write history.
Well, we may as well just throw this away.
Well, it's coming up in an hour and a half, and that is what we said we would go to, and then we would do 50. It's actually 1 minute 28. So this is maybe a good point to start, because I don't want to fight with you, Richard. It's given us things to think about. We can go and double check our shit, and then we can come back and continue the conversation.
Here's the thing for me. Everyone has heard every explanation from every sect of Christianity for 1,000 years, sometimes more. And William Lane Craig is famous for making a 1,200-year-old argument. And that's all fine and dandy, but it doesn't settle anything. And yes, there were homosexualities in armies. In fact, it's preferable if you have homosexuals as soldiers, because they're not just protecting their friend, they're protecting their love. And that's a greater thing. And I get all that, and that's all historically accurate, and it's fine. It's just not relevant. It's not in any way relevant or interesting. And it doesn't solve any problems.
Well, it may not be relevant to your story, but I do think it's interesting to bring up for the people who's watching, and for me actually as well, man, because I'm just asking questions, and this is where my mindset goes, and these are the things I want to ask. Like,
those are points of history. I think points of history are interesting to some people who like history. That's fine.
I'm just trying to make points of when the book was writ, what was going on at the time that the book was wrote.
Yeah, that's historical. That's right.
You know, there
has nothing to do with what I'm talking about at all.
But when people write books, I was just giving you a different interpretation. I didn't mean to come across as rude or anything. I was just trying to give you a different interpretation of the story. That's all.
Right.
So, questions from the audience. We've got 15 minutes. You've had a half an hour to think of questions.
That should be enough time, right?
Yeah, they're probably shouting and talking amongst themselves and not even listening to what we're talking about anyway, Richard.
You'll have that. That's okay.
So, any questions from the audience? Skylar's live, so we've got somewhere to go hang out with after. Nobody's got any questions. Well, Richard, if you want to do a wee shill, I'll do a wee shill. I've got Messenger Reveals coming on Tuesday. The man's actually leaving work early to come on because he's in Central Time. I think you're also Central Time, Richard. So I always do appreciate you. Jim, I didn't see any fucking questions. You need to tag me to make a question. I can't see them if I don't see... Right, anyway. Messenger Reveals coming on Tuesday. There might be a random game stream. I don't know. I could kill some piggies. I'm thinking of downloading The Evil Within. Have you seen this?
I don't know. It's a video game?
Have you heard of Resident Evil? Yes?
It's a video game, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You go around and it's like a really scary story and everything's very dark and you shoot zombies and it could be fun. It looks twitchy and it's like a horror movie. You actually play like through a horror movie. So I'm thinking of getting that. It could be fun to play for a bit of banter. There may be that. And yeah, anything from you, Jim? Or Jim, fuck, I'm looking at the chat. Anything from you, Richard? You've got your usual Wednesday with Tug on his channel. Anybody?
Yeah, we haven't finished up Stuff for Revelation. That's going to be on Sundays from now on. He had a work schedule change. So that's going to be at Sundays, 6 o'clock Central Time. And,
what's that relative to Eastern Time?
It's 1 hour later than Eastern Time.
So that would be 6 hours then behind me as of Sunday because you have your daylight savings this Saturday.
Right.
So that would be 6 hours behind me. So if you're having it at 6, that's midnight on Sunday for me then, yes?
Wow, that's weird. Yep, apparently that's how it works out.
I think that's what it would be good. Yeah, that could work out, man. Yeah, I'll see about that. Because midnight and Sunday suits me way better than Wednesday. Because I haven't been in, and I have been trying to make the effort. But with the Tuesday stream and the Thursday stream, Wednesday's usually my time not being on the internet, you know. But
this is the second time because of work that he had to change what day we did it on, which it's fine. It doesn't bother me either way.
He does have a busy wee schedule, but at least he's making the effort to go out there and get jobs. And if he loses one, he goes and gets another one. And I have to appreciate the man for going out there and supporting his kids. You need to put food on the table, you put food on the table. Shit has to be done. Like. So you've got that now on a Sunday. Anything else? Any interviews?
It's the only thing that's scheduled right now aside from this show with you.
Well, we all know about this because we're all fucking here. Richard,
apparently.
As always, man, peace and respect. And thank you very much for turning up. And yeah, thanks everybody for turning up. And we'll see you next week. And hopefully Tuesday. Bye-bye.